Hi, my name's Ian Noble. I'm the Clinical Procurement Specialist and welcome to this short video looking at the setting up and maintenance of wall-mounted suction. This is the equipment that is needed to be able to safely set up wall-mounted suction. There is a wall-mounted gauge with removable filter. There is the yellow tubing, which comes in rolls and must be cut to size. And there is the hard plastic canister, which attaches to the wall and has a grey tap at the back. This is the wall-mounted or vacuum side of the setup, and this isn't routinely discarded or changed unless it becomes contaminated. There is then the patient-sided setup, which consists of the suction liner with integral green lid and a white tap, the suction tubing, which in this trust we use two different types, pre-packed, which is of a good length with white tips. There is also rolls of tubing, which is also clear, which must be cut to the correct size to fit the taps, but also to be able to reach the patient in all parts of their clinical area, including the bed and the chair. There's also the Yanker suction tip, which is double wrapped. There is also an inner lining which must be removed, and the clear plastic tubing attaches to the end of this. The Yanker tube is then left in its packaging until needed. First of all, you will take the gauge, and the gauge needs to be clean and dry and free of damage. There is also a filter on the bottom of the gauge which will turn pink if it becomes contaminated. So you're checking not only for damage, you're also checking to see that that is not discoloured. If it is, remove and discard the filter, which comes off quite easily, and send the gauge back to MedPhysics. To attach the gauge to the wall, you must locate the vacuum or suction outlet.
There are also other outlets,
but the suction one is the always yellow and will usually say something like vacuum or suction.
The gauges will not attach correctly to the other outlets.
And please do not attempt to do this because it may result in damage. So to attach them to the wall, take the bayonet, slot it into the centre of the outlet until you hear a click, and then give a gentle tug to make sure it's in place. The gentle tug is very important because it removes the risk of the gauge not being fully inserted. To then attach the tubing, you take the yellow tubing, which attaches to the bottom of the gauge, and at this point you can check the suction rate. So turn the suction tap on the side to the on position, turn the dial on the top to maximum, and then place your finger over either the end of the tubing, or if there's no tubing attached, you can attach your finger to the end of the gauge itself. The needle on the dial should rise to at least 500 millimetres of mercury. If the needle doesn't rise to 500 millimetres of mercury, check all your connections and try again, or ask a colleague to assist. If it still doesn't rise to at least 500 millimetres of mercury, then you must contact Estates and Medical Physics. The tubing is then attached to the grey tap at the back of the wall-mounted hard plastic canister. This is then the wall-mounted setup. All of this is not routinely disposable. To set up the patient side, always ensure you've cleaned your hands, either by washing them with soap and water or in alcohol gel. And then remove a new suction liner with attached lid from the packaging. Unfold the bag and put the bag inside the suction canister. Then take the suction tubing, which is always in this trust clear, and either comes in a pre-packed version with white taps at the end, or comes in a version which comes in a roll and can be cut to size. Whichever you use, it's always clear tubing for this section. This tubing attaches to the white tap on the end of the canister. You can then apply gentle pressure to the lid while the suction is turned on, and you will see the bag inside expand to fill the space. To ensure the lid is correctly attached, place a finger over the end of the tubing, or if there's no tubing attached, over the end of the white tap, and you will see that the lid will use the suction to pull itself into place. It's important that you don't apply pressure to the outside, as this can lead to damage of the lid or the canister. The end of the suction tubing can then be attached to a yanker, which must be opened, clean, and attached to the end. If the suction isn't going to be used, you then leave that inside the clean packaging, and this suction is now ready to use. And ensure that the dial is midway, so that in an emergency situation you can turn it on immediately. This setup should be checked daily or on a patient discharge, and you are checking the suction rate, which can be done as described earlier and should always reach over 500 millimetres of mercury. You should also be checking the cleanliness of the setup, ensuring that the suction tubing and the yanker don't appear to have become contaminated or in some way used without being changed. And as long as this daily check is carried out, this suction setup can be left to be used for that particular patient. If on a daily check you find that the suction setup in any part is either contaminated or damaged, or if the suction has been used in a clinical situation, then it must be changed. You must start by ensuring you've cleaned your hands and you're wearing the appropriate PPE for the situation. First of all, you must take the suction catheter and the yanker, and while the suction is still turned on, remove the tubing, the clear tubing, from the top of the suction liner. It's important that the suction remains on whilst this happens, because it prevents splash injuries by ensuring that the fluid is always sucked into the bottom of the canister. You can then take the integral cap on the side of the suction liner, place it into the hole that's been left by removing the tube, and push that firmly into place. At this point, you could turn off the suction. You must then carefully remove the suction liner from the canister and both the liner, the patient-facing tubing and the yanker must be disposed of in the correct waste stream. So this is tiger stripe bags for just ordinary contamination, or an orange bag if it's infectious or suspected to be infectious. All of this setup is always disposable. If the canister or the yellow tubing or the filter at the bottom of the gauge have become contaminated or turned pink, then these must also be removed. The filter can be discarded, as can the yellow tubing. The gauge and the canister will be sent back to medical physics. If there is no sign of contamination, this setup can be left and just cleaned by the nursing staff, as this is medical kit and not the responsibility of the cleaning and facilities staff.